Welcome to this intro to Fulcrum One. Thanks for joining me today. I'm excited to show you around our software, which is our all-in-one design, simulation, and control software for loudspeakers and immersive systems. If you'd like to follow along today, there are links to download our Fulcrum One software and the accompanying SketchUp files that we'll be using today. You'll also find links to additional tutorial videos and educational documents. All right, we're going to go ahead and open our Fulcrum One software. I'm going to come down here to my dock and click on the Fulcrum One icon. Now that we have this landing page opened, we have the option to either connect to a processor if we are out in the field and have a processor online. We can start a new project. We can also load a project or control our processor through the processor settings option. You also have the ability to log in. All right, for this example, let's go ahead and just open a new project. All right, when you open up Fulcrum One, this is your main landing page. On the left side of the screen, you have your Engines tab, your Loudspeakers tab, your Modeling tab, and then Object-Based Mixing and Acoustics tabs. These ones we'll touch on in future videos. Let's go ahead and click on the Modeling tab, and that's going to bring up a Modeling Quick Start pop-up window. From here we have the ability to select either a SketchUp file or a DXF that we can load in to the software. For this example, let's go ahead and click on the SketchUp option. From here we can choose a file in our Finder window. This is a fan-shaped hull that I had previously created for this example in SketchUp. We're going to go ahead and open that up. We have the option of reversing faces if we happen to be importing from ease or something of that nature. We also have our layer manager here, which is any tags that were created in SketchUp will be transitioned into layers inside of our Fulcrum One software. So I had previously set up a floor layer, seating, walls, stage, and so on. In SketchUp, I had the clouds and the ceiling in this particular model hidden, so the software is assuming that I want to discard those. For this example, I don't, so I'm going to select the option of creating those, and then I'm just going to click Import. And that's going to go ahead and bring my 3D model into Fulcrum One. Now that I have a 3D model in here, let's talk a little bit about enabling surfaces for mapping. In the top left side of the screen, we have the ability to view our design window, our mapping window, or a live window. This live window is for controlling object-based mixing, which we'll get into in future videos. All right, let's go ahead and select our mapping tab. From here, if you don't have any surfaces enabled for mapping, it will prompt you to enable surfaces. You have a handful of different ways that you can do this. You can either click on a surface, and in our right properties column, you can toggle it on or off. You also have the option of turning on mapping using layers. This is really handy when you are working in a larger venue and maybe you have a lot of seating sections, and instead of going to each of them individually and toggling them on, you can simply go to the tag, click on the settings option for that tag, and enable mapping. So I'm going to also do that for our floor as well. So we'll enable mapping for the floor. Another option that we have when enabling surfaces for mapping is a mapping offset. And in the properties column on the far right side of the screen, you can either type in a manual value or you can select a couple of mapping offset presets that we have available for you. All right, so let's go ahead and click on the settings, and we'll scroll down to mapping offset. This will give us the ability to control mapping offset on all of the surfaces that are a part of that particular layer. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and bring those to standing level. I'm going to do the same for the floor. Mapping offset and standing. All right. Now that we have our surfaces enabled for mapping and we have a mapping offset for each of those surfaces, let's go ahead and import some loudspeakers. We'll go ahead and select our loudspeakers tab on the far left side of the screen, and then we'll click on this plus sign next to loudspeakers. This will give us a drop down to either import from our loudspeaker library or our array library. So we'll select the loudspeakers, and from here you'll see a list of the different Fulcrum speaker offerings that we have available in Fulcrum One. From here, we recommend that you download the library to have offline on your computer. This is really beneficial if you're wanting to work on an airplane, or you happen to be in a place where you don't have access to the internet. I do want to mention that this option is only available to you if you are logged in. So we recommend that you log in. You can do that either on the welcome screen when you first open the software, or in the bottom left corner of the screen you can click on the little person icon and log yourself in there. All right, for this example, let's go ahead and select our CCX12. This will bring us to a window where we see the different patterns available to us. So we'll select the CCX1295 for this example. When you select a loudspeaker, it will import on the origin for your model. So when I created this model in SketchUp, my origin for the model was on the front and center of the stage where it connects to the ground floor. So that's where my loudspeakers are going to show up when I import a new loudspeaker into a project. All right, now that I have a loudspeaker imported into the project, let's talk about navigation. I have the option to use the arrows to move my loudspeaker around, or I can use these squares. If I click on a given square, it locks in this case, the Z coordinates, and I'm moving it on the X and Y. And that works for these as well. So if I click on this one, I'm now moving it on the X and Z, and the Y is locked into place. That's really handy. I also have the ability to, in the speaker properties column on the far right side of the screen, I can click in a given position XYZ, and I can use my scroll wheel to move the loudspeaker up and down, left and right, and so on. I can also adjust my azimuth, elevation, roll, and so on. For this example, I've already values for placement, so I'm going to go ahead and just type those in quickly here. So we're going to put our X at 0. We'll take our Y to minus 16, and then we'll bring it up to 22 feet in elevation. All right, now that I have this loudspeaker in place, let's talk about aiming. I have the ability to use these sliders in the speaker properties to aim and fine-tune the position of my loudspeaker. I also have a click to aim function that is really handy here in the speaker properties column. If I click on that, it gives me crosshairs that I can place anywhere in the model, and when I click there, the speaker is now automatically aimed to that position. It's really quick, and mapping updates almost instantaneously. So that's something that can speed up your design process. All right, now let's go ahead and maybe fine-tune that a little bit. Now that we have that speaker in place, we have the option to duplicate it on the opposite side of the room so that we have a mirrored speaker design. We can do that by either right-clicking on the loudspeaker itself, and we have the option to duplicate on inverted X or Y. We can also do that in the loudspeaker column on the left. Right-click on a given loudspeaker, and we have the ability to duplicate on the inverted X or Y. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll click on the loudspeaker, duplicate on inverted Y, and now I have two loudspeakers in my model. Super quick and easy. All right, let's go ahead and duplicate these for some delay fills. So I'm going to just select duplicate. I'll select my duplicated speaker in the loudspeakers column on the left side of the screen. And I also want to show you another quick function, which is our click to position. When you select this, it also gives you a set of crosshairs, and then you can quickly click to position that loudspeaker anywhere you want. I do want to mention that the origin for our loudspeakers is on the front and center of the grill. And so in this case, it puts the front and the center of the grill wherever you happen to click. So it is right on the wall. That's why you're not seeing any mapping. If I simply use the arrow to pull it in just a little bit, now you're going to see that mapping for that speaker update. Again, we're going to go ahead and just type in some quick values that I had already predetermined. So we'll go 28.6. We'll go minus 16. And we'll bring that up to 22 feet. All right. Let's go ahead and quickly pop back to our modeling tab on the far left side of the screen. I want to show you something that goes back to when we were importing this model. We do have clouds and the ceiling are still in this model, and they're contributing to the shadowing of this particular model. So if I turn on the clouds, you'll see them show up. If I happen to raise a given loudspeaker up over top of the clouds, you will see that that area is being shadowed now by the clouds. And this is true even when that layer is hidden. So something to be made aware of. If we bring that back down to the 32 feet, or sorry, the 22 feet, you'll see that mapping is no longer shaded on the ground floor. So let's go ahead and right click on that loudspeaker and we'll duplicate it on the inverted Y coordinates. Now we have a pair of delay fill speakers. Let's go ahead and import a couple of loudspeakers for front fills. For this particular example, I'm going to go ahead and disable mapping for these two surfaces that are right up close to the stage, just so we can see better. We'll come back to our loudspeaker column on the far left side of the screen, select the plus sign, open up the loudspeaker library, and I'll scroll down, and let's, for this example, we'll use the RX8. It's one of our new RX series speakers, and just a really great front fill speaker. All right, now that we have that speaker selected, I'm going to go ahead and enable mapping on the stage. I do this because it's really quick and easy to be able to determine exactly where your loudspeaker is, because you can see it come through that mapping surface. So if I wanted to place that loudspeaker on the front edge of the stage, say just underneath the surface of the stage, I could do that. Or if I wanted to place it right on top of the stage, I could view that from underneath and slowly move that up until it's on top of the stage. All right, let's go ahead and push that that front fill speaker off to the left. Let's say we'll go minus 12 feet on the Y. We'll right click and duplicate that loudspeaker. That duplicated loudspeaker I'll bring to, I don't know, let's say minus 6. We'll duplicate that again and bring that loudspeaker to 0 on that. And now one side of the stage set up, we can simply right click and duplicate on inverted Y to mirror those front fill speakers on the other side of the stage. So now that we have that done, I'm going to go ahead and click on these two surfaces again, toggle on mapping, bring them up to standing elevation so that I can continue my mapping. All right, for this particular example, let's go ahead and now create a few groups for these loudspeakers. on the right side of the screen, we have the Properties tab, which we've been living in up to this point. We're going to go ahead and select the Groups tab, and from here we can click on the plus sign and just create a few groups. So I'm going to go ahead and label these main, delays, and front fills. All right. Now that I have those created, I'm going to go back to my Properties tab, and I'm going to select my two main loudspeakers by shift selecting them in the loudspeaker column on the left side of the screen. From here, I can assign them to a given group here on the bottom right column in the speaker properties. So I'm going to select those two to be part of the mains group. You can see over here that there's this little green group assigned icon that shows up, and if you hover over it, you can determine what group or groups that a given loudspeaker is assigned to. So we'll go ahead and shift select the next two, which are delay fill speakers, and we'll assign them to the delay group. And then we'll select our front fill speakers here, and we can assign those to our front fills group. The benefit of this from a speed standpoint is that we have the ability to now control each of those in the groups. So for instance, if I wanted to bring the volume down of my front fills, I could select the controls for my front fills and simply click on the volume of that particular group, and I can raise it or lower it. In this case, I'm using the scroll wheel on my mouse to do that. I also have the ability to mute those off. I can invert the polarity, select delay options for that particular group of speakers. I also have the ability to put filters on a given group. So I have the ability to select everything from parametric to all pass, high pass, low pass, and so on. For the front fills, I'm just going to quickly drop those in at, I don't know, something like that. All right, let's talk about that delay option that we had available to us in the controls of a given group. Now, you can do this on individual loudspeakers in the loudspeaker properties column, but you can also apply delay to a grouping of speakers. So in this case, I've already determined that, let's see here, that 28.86 is a good value of delay for this particular, for the position of these loudspeakers. And then from there, I'm going to come into that group controls, and I'm going to go ahead and bring down the volume of those delay fill speakers just a little bit. I'll also go ahead and do that just a little bit more on the front fills. All right. So hopefully that shows you how quick and easy it is to get up and running in Fulcrum One, setting up a loudspeaker design. Let's talk a little bit about what we're viewing from a mapping standpoint. In the bottom portion of the screen, you have the option of selecting your signal, pink noise, EIA 426. You can change the amp input level to the speakers. You have the options of third octave, octave, and broadband. And then, of course, you can change the frequencies that you're looking at. We also have our probes option right here. And if I select that, it opens up this window where I can add probes. You also have the option to click to position right here on each of the probes, so that's super handy. I'll select this guy, and using the crosshairs, I'll put him up front, and then I'll select this guy, and using the crosshairs, I'll put him in the back side of the screen. And then I'll add another one to, let's say, to the stage. All right, now that we have our probes placed in our model, we can see the frequency spectrum coverage at each of those locations, frequency specific as we hover our mouse over top of this particular window. All right, let's go ahead and close this out. And I want to show you one other thing here that's super handy. If you happen to be in a large model and you're lost in the model and you can't quite find your way out, in the top right side of the screen, you have this little home button next to your gyro. And if you click on that, it brings you back to your original position for the model. So super handy to be able to get out of a tough situation, especially if you're working on a large project. All right. I do want to mention from a control standpoint, if you're wanting to fine-tune a design and look at individual speakers or individual groups, from this main loudspeaker column or from the groups column, you have the ability to solo or mute a given loudspeaker. You also have the ability, of course, to solo and mute a given grouping of loudspeakers. So quick and easy to be able to navigate there. All right, now that we've completed the quick design for this room, let's go ahead and talk about line array optimization. I'm going to go ahead and tab over to another session that I already had open. This is just a blank session with no model in it. We'll go ahead and click on the modeling tab, import our SketchUp file. For this example, I'm going to use a version of that fan-shaped hull that we were just working on. But this particular one has a balcony built onto the back of it. So now that I have this model in place, I'm going to go ahead and select my mapping tab at the top left side of the screen. Because I don't have any surfaces enabled for mapping, again, it is prompting me to enable surfaces for mapping. In my layers over here on the left side of the screen, I'm going to go ahead and enable mapping on my aisle. And I'm going to enable mapping on my seating sections. All right, now that I have that taken care of, let's go ahead and import a line array. So we're going to select our loudspeaker tab in the top left side of the screen. Click on the plus sign and select array. From here we can select our FL283 line array. And once we've done that, we can select the box count for a given array. So for this example, I'll select 6 boxes, and it will import those right on the origin for this particular model, which again is on the front and center edge of the stage at the ground floor. So from here, I can select my line array. I can manipulate its positions by either using the arrows that are right on its origin, which, by the way, is the front and center of the very top box, which is where the top box would connect to your flybar. All right, I also have the ability to, of course, come over here and use my scroll wheel to just bring that loudspeaker up in elevation. All right, for this particular example, I'm just going to bring it to a quick predetermined elevation, and I'm going to bring it out into the room a little bit so that when I pull it back, it's not hitting my, my proscenium. All right, we have a couple of options for us when it comes to quickly optimizing our line arrays in Fulcrum One. Once we have a line array selected, we can come over to our array properties column here, and we can select aim bumper. Again, this is going to give me crosshairs just like click to aim or click to position. And I'm going to go ahead and select the back of the auditorium. And then I'm going to also click on splay last here on the right side of the screen, and I can select right down here in the front side of the room, this front seating section, where I want that array to be splayed to. For this particular room, this array is probably not large enough, so let's go ahead and add a few boxes. We can do that a couple of different ways. We can either expand the array in our loudspeakers column on the left side of the screen, and we can click on any given box and their settings option, and we have the ability to insert above or below a given box. So in this case, I'll insert a box above. Actually, let's go ahead and select 2 boxes. And we also have the option in our array properties column on the far right side of the screen to just click on the add plus sign at the bottom of the array boxes, and I can add boxes that way as well. So I could add an additional box on the bottom. You can see it's kind of wonky looking now since they came in at their default positions. But because our bumper is already positioned to the back of the auditorium, we can simply click on Splay Last and then select the front of the auditorium, and it will quickly optimize the array for the number of boxes that happen to be in that particular array. If you want to fine-tune your positioning, you can fine-tune over in the right side of the array properties column. You can change up given angles and so on. All right. Again, to be able to duplicate this line array on the opposite side of the stage so that we have a stereo system, I can simply push this line array off to the left, right click on it, duplicate on inverted Y coordinates, and now I have my two line arrays in position really quick and easy. All right, let's go ahead and click back to that other model that we had available to us. And I want to show you a little bit more detail on our mapping options. So if we double click on the color scale bar at the left side of the screen or on the gear wheel in the bottom left corner of the screen, we can open up our settings for mapping. We have the option of changing the signal, analyzer. We could change this to A-weighted. We have bunches of options for different colors if you prefer a different color scheme. We have shadowing available to you, so if you happen to have a beam or a pillar inside of an auditorium, or you're being shadowed by a balcony or something like that, that will take that into account. We have a couple of different options. We've been viewing the aiming and design preset for display. We also have our max SPL preset. If you click on that and max SPL, which changes the settings to give you the overall max SPL value of a given system. So if we click back to the mapping view, you can kind of see we're looking now at the amp input level turned up to plus 24. We're looking at EIA 426 and broadband. If we want to bring these loudspeakers on the left side out of limit, we can do so by just reducing the amp input level. So if you hover over each of those limit boxes, you can see the value that you have available to you as far as headroom is concerned. All right, I do want to show you one more option that's really handy when it comes to determining overall SPL value at each location based on your mapping settings. So if you option click on Mac or alt click on a PC, you have the ability to drop your overall volume or dB values at any given location. If you change your settings, say I'll go to 1 octave at 1K, those values change with you. So you can see that the values are changing based on what happens to be selected in any given moment. So that is really handy when it comes to exporting screenshots to show overall dB values for a given system. And if you want to get rid of those, you can just simply click Escape. Let's talk about a couple of export functions that are available to you. In the loudspeaker column on the left side of the screen, we have this report icon at the top of the loudspeaker column. If you select that, it will open up the loudspeakers that you have in your design, and all of their values. You have the ability to export from this window a CSV file, or if you select File and drop down to Export, you can also export that speaker report as a CSV right here. You also have the option of exporting a SketchUp model of this particular design, including the loudspeakers, or a DXF. So that is really handy if you happen to be passing off a design to a lighting designer or someone that's working in the room. That way they know exactly where your loudspeaker positions are. All right, thank you for joining us for this intro to Fulcrum One. I do want to mention that if you go to fulcrum1.com, actually fulcrum-1.com, you have the ability to download the software. We have a handful of SketchUp models, including the ones that we were working off of today, that are available to you to mess around with. And please reach out to us if you have any questions or you would like us to review your designs. We'd be happy to help you in any way that we can.